This is CAC News with me, Dan Whitell. Tonight, Coldplay's headlining set. Did it go smoothly or were they in trouble? Dua Lipa, was she good or was it just an illusion? And SZA, did she kill at the top of the bill? Find out on tonight's CAC News, Glastonbury 2024 special with Dan Whitell and Tom. Hey CAC fans, it's me, Dan Whitell here, and I'm with Tom. We are here for a CAC News special in which we are going to focus on Glastonbury 2024, all the artists that have just played over the last weekend, including our thoughts on the lineup, the festival in general, and we'll bring you up to speed in the world of music. Tom, how you doing?
I'm very well. I don't have a one-liner for you today. I didn't think of that in advance. I don't think I need one on these
No, we're beyond
episode,
that now.
right?
This is 2024. We don't do that shit no longer. We're just here to talk about Glastonbury. Did you watch much of it?
I was busy because my band were gigging on the Saturday night.
Indeed you were.
I had a theatre rehearsal all day on the Sunday. And I went to watch another gig in Plymouth on the Friday. So most of what I've done is watch snippets of things on in between. I know I'm getting ahead a bit here, but I wasn't that sold on the lineup this year.
No, I don't think it was the best lineup that I've seen.
I don't like saying this because it makes me feel old fartish. I think it's the weakest Glastonbury lineup that's happened in my lifetime.
I'm not familiar enough with all of the Glastonbury lineups that have been, but it certainly seems like one of the weaker ones that I've watched. I've never been. So every Glastonbury experience has been from the comfort of my sofa, just picking who I want to watch, when I want to watch it. It's difficult to judge it from that perspective, but it certainly seems like when I'm going through the BBC iPlayer coverage, it's a bit lackluster. I
went to Glastonbury about 20 years ago and didn't go back because I didn't love it. Arctangent is my favourite festival of all time. I go every year. I will go every year, no matter what the lineup is, because the stages are quite carefully curated and the lineup is very carefully curated to have a flow. The best example of lineups being curated was All Tomorrow's Parties, which was a festival that existed back in the late 2000s. It was going before then, but I started going in about 2007. It was held in Minehead, Butlins. And they would get a band or an artist to curate the weekend, and they would choose what bands were playing when, and the bands would have a logical flow, and the festival experience would be curated for you by these artists who would decide what would go together and what sequence people would want to watch things in, and where they could put different artists to avoid clashes because the people who like this aren't going to like this. And you look at what Download had to do this year with moving artists around for the headliners because they realised they put, was it Machine Head and Limp Bizkit on at the same time or something, and had to move stuff around this year. And because they realised that the people who like those artists are going to want to go to both.
It's a clash, isn't it?
And if you do a clash, people are going to leave halfway through and go to another stage. In festivals that cover a smaller area like Download, you can do that. But in Glastonbury, you can't do that, which leads on to why, was it SZA had the smallest... Yeah, SZA, I don't know how to pronounce it. I watched a couple of snippets of her set and she performed pretty well. It's not my genre at all.
I watched her whole set and thought it was fantastic. And I think that the problem is she had the energy of a Friday night act and she wasn't a Sunday night act. I think people are complaining about the crowd, but Sunday night is the feel-good thing where people can peter out as they want to. It's not about the high energy. So I think she would have been perfect for a Saturday and get somebody else on the Sunday. It really rubs me up the wrong way.
She was on against the National and London Grammar, who both pulled bigger crowds. There was lots of scheduling errors when you look at what people are saying on X, formerly Twitter. But can I just call it Twitter still? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool,
Fuck Elon Musk.
Cool. Right, that's okay. So you look at what people are saying there, and you look at, like, was it Sugar Babes got put on quite a small stage, and then they had to close it. People couldn't get in.
They would have been great for the Sunday night.
Yeah. Or, to be fair, any time, and like on the main stage, looking at the numbers who went. You go through Friday, right? The set times for the main stage. You start with Squeeze. Okay, I can see that, right? Then you've got Olivia Dean, who I don't know who that is.
I'm not too familiar. I saw she'd come up, but yeah.
17 that are a K-pop act.
K-pop, yeah. I think that's about right.
K-pop, yeah, but following Squeeze. Then you've got
probably not
Heaton.
the right crowd. Paul Heaton follows Squeeze, surely. That's a natural.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. But you put Olivia Dean and K-pop in between Squeeze and Paul Heaton. And then after Paul Heaton, you put PJ Harvey, who is a goddess, but with her newer, more introspective stuff. Is she a main stage act? Probably not. And then you change tack completely and go LCD sound system into Dua Lipa. That's probably quite a good move, to be fair, especially with an hour between them for people to go and watch other stuff. That's not a logical flow. That is, who have we got who we want to put on the main stage?
It doesn't seem like there's much thought. But then ultimately, I always think of this when it's coming down to Glastonbury. The same person that's made these choices to put these bands on at that time is also the same person that thinks getting Coldplay to headline Glastonbury 5 times makes it a good festival. It doesn't. We're trying to discuss the type of mind that thinks that Coldplay on a Saturday night is the pinnacle of music, when it isn't. They just look like they come from paintballing, and all the best parts of their set were when other people were the focus. When you get Michael J. Fox to come on and do nothing because he's not really capable, and you patronize him by singing "Fix You" at him, it just feels like a Family Guy joke. Remember that time Coldplay brought out Michael J. Fox for no reason, and they tried to sing "Fix You" to heal him? Coldplay, for me, shouldn't have had any more of a prominent slot than Keane. And I thought Keane, they kicked ass. They were better than Coldplay because they just had a more simplistic design. Coldplay is just a light show for people that don't really listen to a lot of music.
I've got to be really careful bad-mouthing Coldplay because my girlfriend thinks they're like the greatest band ever, and she went to see them in Budapest. And their first 2 albums are fantastic and they were of their time. But then they made X and Y, and everything good about X and Y, Snow Patrol did better. And then everything they've done since then, in my opinion, has been poor versions of what other people were doing just before. Yeah. They haven't innovated in any area of music other than those sort of light up wristbands that all get thrown on the floor, and
it's all about the mementos that you get, the wristbands and the glow sticks and things, and I just don't get it.
Sigur Rós do that far better without any of the gimmickry.
The only reason Coldplay were so big, I think, is because it took Radiohead so long to record the follow-up to OK Computer, because it took them 3 years to come out with Kid A, so we had to figure out who the best band in the meantime were, and it happened to be Coldplay and Travis. And Travis were pedestrian, Coldplay were pedestrian, but for some reason Coldplay is still here, and Travis, well, I guess then
Travis are still around. They've just they're all over Radio 2 at the moment. Actually, they're on like pretty much every day. Their new single is being plugged heavily. And there were other bands at that time that were very good. I mean, if you wanted to go at the heavier, like that late 90s, early 2000s, like my golden era for rock music or indie rock music, because you had I love Star Sailor. I don't care what anybody says. Their first album's great, and their second album's banging, and their third album is also very good, and then everything after that I didn't love, but those first 3 albums are fantastic. Turin Breaks do the acoustic side of what Coldplay were doing far better, in my opinion. They don't have the choruses to fill stadiums, but they've definitely got the choruses. And actually, I'm surprised we haven't seen them play more festivals, because I saw them a couple of years ago, just before COVID. They were touring, and they put on a hell of a show. They're a band, because they're now an actual 4-piece band, not just the 2 guitarists. And they're really, really good live. And we don't see them at festivals. We probably should, because people our age all know their songs, even if they don't know who they're by. Coldplay have managed longevity, and I will give that to them. Yeah. They've managed longevity without significant innovation or reinvention.
I don't know what it is.
And they'll probably be around for a lot longer. Fine. There are enough people who like and listen to Coldplay that I can kind of understand you putting them on the festival. Yes. But main stage headliners...
For the 5th time.
It does smack of running out of ideas. I don't just want to sit here and bash Glastonbury, but what people who go to Glastonbury for, and what I go to a music festival for, are very different things.
This is what I'm getting at. We're trying to pluck the mind of somebody who thinks Coldplay are the ultimate headline act. We're like, well, it's not really our kind of festival.
A load of people I work with go to Glastonbury every year. They will book to go before they even know what bands have been announced.
Well, you
because
have to.
They go, yeah, you do. They go for the atmosphere and the experience, and they're not necessarily, they're there to see a couple of artists that they love and then get drunk in the campsite and go and have a dance and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I remember Squeak, friend of the show.
Shout out.
Whenever a festival would get announced, he would sit down with the lineup and he would work out every band he wanted to see and how much it would cost to see them play on their tour, and then work out whether he was getting value for money from buying a festival ticket. But
I don't need to go that far, but yeah.
No, but I'm kind of with him on this.
Yeah, yeah.
But even then, not quite, because, so say, for example, I'm going to see a few bands that I love at Arctangent this year. Mogwai are going to play, right? I saw Mogwai a few years ago, and they played like a 2.5-hour set in the Times Theatre up in Newcastle. That was about 10 years ago now, crikey. When you see them at a festival, they're going to maybe play an hour and they're going to play the greatest hit stuff and not the news. And actually with Mogwai, it'll be a lot of the new stuff because they got a #1 album, but you know what I mean? So when you go to see a band at a festival, you go and see a greatest hit set, probably. Personally, when I go to a festival list, I either want a curated experience where all the bands fit together, a couple of bands that I haven't seen before that I know are going to be good live that I quite like, or the Squeak list. I want to see all these bands live. I'd like to see them all this year. They're in this place. But I go through the Glastonbury lineup this year, and there's only probably one band on that list I would go out of my way to see live, and that's Highland, who I saw at Arctangent last year. The rest of them I've either seen before and don't care if I see again, because there's not that many new up-and-comers, or I wouldn't go out of my way to see them. If they were at a festival with loads of other bands I wanted to see, I'd enjoy it. Watch the last Dinner Party set. Good set. Like, great
I thought they were great.
Great set list, great choice of songs. They perform really well. They look really cool doing it.
She's a great singer, great front person.
But they're not a band that I'm deliberately going on. I'm not going online going, I've got to buy tickets to that.
No.
There's not enough of a group of similar acts for me to want to go out of my way to go to Glastonbury. Reading 2012, you knew before the lineup was announced there'd be 20 or 30 fantastic kind of heavy indie rock type bands like Frightened Rabbit, Joy Formidable, that sort of thing, that would make it worth you buying a ticket for those bands. I'm not sure you get that with Glastonbury now.
No, I think what it looks like has happened is the festival's become so popular, especially in the last 10 years or so, that it's now catering to those wider audiences that include children and people that bought a ticket to go to watch Glastonbury, not to go and see any particular music. They probably haven't bought a new record in the last 2 years. They're just going for the experience. And the problem is that it seems like the festival organisers are now just catering to that being their primary audience. So you get this big, it's just like a mishmash of bits from here, there and everywhere, no thought to the cohesive festival. And it means that when you get people who are really popular with certain demographics, like SZA, and you put her on Sunday night and you think she's got the streaming numbers to do it, there's a lot of people that are at that festival that aren't aware of current music. They're not there for that. They're just there for the experience. So they're going to complain when they see SZA because it's not up their street. And it does wind me up because it seems that whenever a top R&B or rap artist is headlining these acts, there's always seemingly some sort of backlash where they have to show pictures of empty crowds to try and prove that this person's useless. And it's always the same. It's always when it's a rap artist or an R&B artist, and you see all these comments from people saying, "Oh, I don't like rap music." SZA's not rap music. SZA's just R&B. So there's this air of racism, and I really don't like it. It leaves a sour taste in my mind. Happens at a lot of festivals. That's why I went out of my way to watch SZA and say, well, okay, what was everybody talking about? And she was fantastic. She was way better than Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa, she looked nervous. She comes across in interviews as a superstar, and she walked out on that stage, and I thought it drowned her. And she just gave very mediocre performances of some
good songs, but this album cycle was not as strong as the last one. I don't think Dua Lipa was the answer for Friday. I don't think Coldplay was the answer for Saturday. SZA should have been moved, but I don't want to come across as old man shouting at clout. Like, there were lots of good acts. I think that
there were.
Jessie Ware was on at the same time as Coldplay, and that would have been an easy choice for me. Jessie Ware's fantastic, and she killed it. She absolutely killed it. She's one of the best live performers, I think. She's very down to earth with how she manages herself on stage, but she's got a fantastic voice. She belts it out, and the aesthetic of the Pearl Lounge is great.
Just as a caveat to everything I've said already, because I know I've been very negative, I don't have a problem with Glastonbury existing like it does, because I don't think it pretends anymore to be a festival for music fans. It pretends to be Glastonbury, which is what it pretends to be. It is a destination to go and have the Glastonbury experience. And if you're going to do that, you probably don't care who's on, and that's fine. Whereas
we're music now. And we care.
Yeah, and
the audience
we
of
do.
the channel cares.
Yeah, there are plenty of other festivals out there that cater for us.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sit here and go, oh, it's dreadful. Like, the place I want to go has been taken over. It hasn't. The place I want to go still exists. And there are plenty of small festivals with really carefully curated lineups that are designed to be exactly what I want. So you've got like End of the Road, Green Man, Arctangent and 2000 Trees. Is it Latitude? All these festivals have absolutely everything that I want in a festival. Is curated. There are great acts on. It's a good music environment. You think how far you've got to walk between the main stage and the other stage. Download's a good example. If you're into metal music, it's all about the music. So yes, there's a vibe and a thing, but still, when you're there, they are going to put on banging band after banging band after banging band, so that you walk from one stage to the other via the bar in the middle. And that's what you're going to do. It's still a music festival in that sense, or it certainly was when I went in 2019, and looking at the lineups, it still is. The podcast that the guy who runs 2000 Trees is doing, and he got the organisation Download on an episode. I can't remember what the name of it is. If we find it, we'll like add it into the blurb. Dan can put it in post. But he does a podcast about organising festivals, and the guy from Download talks about how he's actually thinking about who's going where and how are you going to make it work. And that's really nice to hear. These festivals do still exist for us, so I'm not bitter about the fact Glastonbury's a destination like that. It's not somewhere I want to go.
At 37, I can't really be bothered with the whole 3 days. I could still do it, but
I love it.
It would take a lot of, I'd have to amass a lot of enthusiasm before I go. But there are loads of, I could definitely keep myself entertained, go into various different acts. Michael Kiwanuka, he was great. The best thing that I saw, and this didn't surprise me, because I didn't really watch it as it was live. I was out seeing Foreign Voices, doing other things over the weekend, and then I decided to just sit down and watch what I thought would be my highlights of Glastonbury, which is a great way to watch it, and it's great that we have that opportunity by the iPlayer. The first thing I was going to click was Janelle Monáe, and she didn't disappoint. She was excellent. I don't really gel with her new album that much. I thought it was very short and very not much to it, but live she really brings those tracks out with her. She's just got infectious energy. She's just amazing at everything. You can tell she's been mentored by Prince, because she's got the stage persona, she's got the dance moves, everything's going on. She's got the back catalogue as well, Make Me Feel and Tightrope, great ways to end. The Michael Jackson kind of Billie Jean tribute with the moonwalk, that was excellent. She was the highlight for me, but she was always going to be. And then I watched several acts and I was like, oh, they're good, but they're not as good as Janelle Monáe. So she should have headlined it on the Sunday for me. That would have been the best call. Yeah. She always seems to be underplayed at all these festivals. They seem to bill her behind other acts that she might not stream as much as them, but I think her stature, she's a movie star. She was in Glass Onion. She's just phenomenal, and she brings that energy. I thought she was amazing. Who would you say of what you've seen was the best act?
Every time I watch them live, I don't really love their records, but I always enjoy watching them live. And I'm actually, I really enjoy watching Idols.
I haven't seen their set.
I mean, I'm struggling to pick out a favourite, because I watched most of Idol's set and I really enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed Little Sim's set.
Little Sims was really good. She's incredible. Yeah. Great charisma. The stage setup was just perfect. It didn't need a big a big show. It was just her and her vocals and a smaller band, and the Gorilla she ended with, that was monstrous.
Yeah, that was great. And I'm going to say, I kind of expected to be disappointed, but I actually wasn't. And I'm going to say, I don't want to say this in public, I actually really enjoyed Avril Lavigne's set.
Yeah, I did watch a bit of it, and she was great. Her voice surprised me at how well she could sing live, because she came from that manufactured era of they didn't really sing live, and her voice sounded really, really strong. But I did think she looked a bit bored. I think she came out and kind of
I think that's her stage. I think that's her stage persona, to be fair.
It is. But if I want to listen to Skater Boy, which is never something that happens, but if I do, then I want it with gusto. I don't want it just like, it's just like, it's nice, but give us some heavier backing, I think, maybe. But yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah, possibly.
She was better than Shania Twain, and she was better than Cyndi Lauper. I think maybe time has come for Cyndi Lauper. She wasn't as bad as Debbie Harry when I saw her, and Cyndi Lauper's going that way, but it's still great to see her get her flowers. Shania Twain, I thought, she baritoned the fuck out of all the songs and didn't hit any of the high notes. I think she's had some health issues, so we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. It's still good to see her. Man, I Feel Like a Woman is one of those where you go, I never want to hear that song again until they play it, and I'm like, all right, then one more go, and then never again. But just seems to get you every time.
The only other band I'd probably give a shout out to, I didn't watch their Glastonbury set, but I have seen them live a number of times, and they are always fantastic. They were a headliner on the Avalon stage, Skindred. They're always fantastic live. And I've always kind of wanted to see Kate Nash live. I missed her set. She played in Newcastle in, was it Holt's Yard? I was supposed to go to it and I missed it. And I've always wanted to see her live because I quite like her stuff.
I like her now, and she was on Glow. She was really good in that, and her music's got better. But Foundations is one of my least favourite songs of all time. And if somebody asked me if to pay money to be subjected to that in a field, I think I suffer some sort of breakdown.
I've always had a soft spot for that song.
I don't know her vocals in it. Oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's so bitter. Oh God. Oh, I just want to cringe.
It was very in the same era as Lily Allen, and that very. Yeah,
I thought she was a bit more palatable. Vocal. She was a little bit more palatable. Although Kate Nash did have a tune which at the time I thought was a joke. It isn't a joke. It's Caroline is a Victim. It was her first ever release, and the more I've gone back to it, the more I'm like, actually, it's a little bit of a tune. I don't really have a strong opinion on her. It's just that one particular song. I think it was just overplayed, and it was in that era where I was at my most contrarian.
It's always hard picking favourite acts. Performance is a really difficult thing to find, because some people will probably have watched Dua Lipa's performance and thought it was one of the greatest live things they've seen.
Yeah.
Because, and SZA as well, it is amazing. Like, watching choreography on stage like that is amazing. Lots of people, I seem to agree with this, because they get voted one of the top live acts of all time fairly regularly, or at least they're normally towards the top of the list. Godspeed You Black Emperor, one of my favourite bands live, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it is a group of them who basically just sit in a circle on the stage. But it's the fact it's all improvised, and the way the instruments work together, and the way they put the set list together and create an ebb and a flow. That's what I want out of a set. Whereas
I'm so keen on that.
Whereas a lot more people are into like the kind of visual spectacle, and
I think I'm one of them.
I think you might be, and it doesn't surprise me.
I was watching Jungle, and we talked about Jungle on the show before. I think they're really good, and I love all their music. Busy Earning is a great way to open a set. But I'm watching the set, and there's just something about the fact that they're in silhouette. It's always cool with a colour screen and all that. I just need something to draw my attention and to ground the performance. I need some sort of lead singer or some sort of dance troupe. When it's just a bit higgledy-piggledy on the stage, it reminds me too much of a Tiny Desk concert. That's what I was thinking of with LCD Sound System. It reminded me of a Tiny Desk concert, but on a big level. And I'm like, if you're at a festival, it's not the same vibe, so I don't enjoy it as much. I'd love it if it was like a small room and it's intense. You're just supposed to be in the moment for the music. But when there's the bigger stage, it never quite draws me in. So I would say I like Jungle, but live I was a bit underwhelmed by what I saw. Same with Justice as well. I love all their music, but at some point I'm an hour into watching two guys pressing buttons on a keyboard, and from home it doesn't work. Corinne Bailey Rae, I love Black Rainbows. I thought her album was incredible, and I thought that the live performances were actually really exquisite, and she was excellent.
Yeah.
But she came out and said, "This is a presentation of my new album, Black Rainbows." And from that moment, there was a little bit inside me that died, because I knew that she was going to do this thing where she does long talks in between each song, explaining what the songs are like. Now, I love that, but as a DVD extra, not on stage, because it's one of them. I could just hear Al in the back shouting, "Get the fuck on with it!" And and it's just one of those. I'm like, don't give people an excuse to be dickheads at festivals. So I'm always a bit on edge when people do long speeches in between. And I'm one of those that I just want to add my own thoughts onto it. Tell me what it's about afterwards at length. But when I'm there, I'm from song to song, swing it around and let's see if we can go with it.
Yeah, I have fights in my band about audience interaction, because I am of the Pixies school of thought, which is you don't talk to the audience, you get up on stage, you melt their fucking faces off, and then you get off.
Yeah.
Let your music do the talking.
Yeah.
A lot of the more post-rock and heavy arty bands are in that sort of frame of mind, and you'll find that the audience are in that frame of mind as well. The thing with audience interaction, I think you can get it wrong. I think you can pitch it wrong. And I think what Corinne Bailey Rae did there is not the right way. It can't be incongruous. It's got to fit. The way you talk to the audience either has to fit with the music or be part of the show. Like, one of the masters of audience interaction is the singer from Opeth. He is amazing. Opeth are really heavy. Heavy. I saw them live in 2005 when it was the first band I saw when I went to university. He was making jokes about how he'd been given a course on how to do audience interaction, and he was making this kind of jolly, happy story thing going alongside playing this heavy music. And although that was incongruous, it worked because he clearly scripted it and thought about every word he was going to say. Unless you're going to that level of detail working it out, I think you've got to be really careful with how you do it. I don't think you can ever risk boring your audience by talking too much.
Yeah, it's a very fine line though, isn't it? Someone like Jessie Ware can get away with calling out little bits about her past in between songs. You could just take the Janelle Monáe approach out and get your tits out, so the afternoon cameras have to quickly pan away. I mean, that'll get the audience on board pretty quickly no matter what you've done. But yeah, there are people that can do it, and then there are people that it just goes on a little bit long, and I'm like, you're not the most interesting person in the world. Yeah. I've not paid any money, and I'm the ultimate armchair critic here, but yeah, it drags it out. There's other acts that are playing. If you added up all the time you've spent between songs talking about the songs, you could have fit a whole extra song in there. So it is all the best use of time.
Yeah, and I think as a smaller band, I mean, it's why the Last Dinner Party did their set really well. Like they did. As a smaller act, you can't really risk doing that because you need to fill your set with enough songs to win your audience over. Yeah. If the audience don't know who you are, now that's not true at Glastonbury. Most people know who you are if you're on a Glastonbury, unless you're on like the introducing stage. And even then, you go through the introducing stage list and you'll have heard of most of them already. Like which is good for them. Like
it's a real shame. Just while we're on that subject, because the BBC iPlayer footage only covers the big acts, like even the hidden gems are relatively well-known acts. So there is no chance to see anything that's on before like 2 p.m. or on any of the smaller stages, which is such a shame. BBC, if you're listening to the Cacophony set, please
put out some.
A, we'll do a show. We can talk money for that. But B, make sure you focus on the smaller acts, the stuff that nerds like us want to see.
Yeah, we do. And I will always look at the lineup of who's on the introducing stage and maybe listen to a couple of tracks just to see if it's something that's going to grab me. The fact we can't watch that's a shame. And maybe that's the artistry in picking who plays at Glastonbury. It's making sure you've got a variety of acts who everyone's going to have heard of. The artist doesn't have to win over the crowd in the same way. They're playing to, it's almost like playing to a home audience the whole time. Yeah. Whereas I'm used to not playing to a home audience. So, I mean, I write all of our set lists. And I want it to have a flow so the audience never get bored, and it's got to go in a specific direction. And you can't never put a heavy one with a slow one and never have dead time. There's an artistry in that.
Yeah.
Don't bore your audience.
And where will Power and Voices be not boring audiences next?
Oh, so we're playing Future Fest at Move in Exeter on the 13th of July. And we're playing the Dublin Castle in September in Camden. That'll be cool. It's the 22nd of September. We've got 2 more Plymouth shows this year. We've got Saturday, the 31st of August. We're playing at Leadworks with a band from Exeter called Low Wave, who are really cool. They're really nice guys as well. And then we're playing on the 11th of October at the Underground with a band called Kingsfoil.
Cool. So make sure you check out those gigs if you can get down to the Southwest and see them.
Dublin Castle, actually, we need to get people down to that. So Dublin Castle in Camden, in London, Sunday, the 22nd of September. Please come. We'll have merch. You can buy T-shirts. I think they're a tenner. Come to Camden, come to the Dublin Castle, buy a T-shirt. We'd love it. Tell me how much you disagree with me. No, please don't do that. I've got a gig to play.
Before we round off this episode of CAC News, I did want to just touch on some of the recent obituaries, because there's been a few, and it seems to be we like to end these things on a morbid note. It's been mentioned in passing on this channel, but Steve Albini was the big one of the last few months. He died last month. He's been discussed a lot on this channel. I know, Tom, you weren't necessarily the biggest fan of his production.
Now, much as I don't love his production style, I do appreciate the value of that man in music today.
Yeah.
So the music he made with Big Black, incredibly influential. I've seen him live playing in Shellac 3 or 4 times, and I met him briefly after one of the shows.
Oh, wow.
Lovely man. Absolutely lovely. Quiet. When you hear other bands talking about him, quietly charismatic. He made music with Big Black and Shellac. He worked with artists, and although I don't always love the results, the creative influence he has on those bands and the way he gets the best out of them are almost revolutionary ideas in terms of music production.
Yeah.
And although I would call him the anti-producer, that doesn't mean they're bad records. We don't know how much of an influence he has all the time because he doesn't talk about it. He's not like Bob Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Who will tell everybody how much he did on that record and how it wouldn't sound the same without him. And it's comfortable personal, the albums that band had produced before. Steve Albini doesn't do that. He doesn't tell you how much of an impact he had on those records.
Came across as quite humble, and certainly the more recent interviews. And he would be the first person to say he was a bit of an asshole in his younger years. And he was very much contrarian with some really terrible opinions on some frankly disgusting things. But I think as he matured, he certainly tried to become a better person. And I have a lot of respect for the kind of energy that he was putting into defending trans people online. He was a good advocate for normalcy in how people should behave around trans people online. He was a good figure for that, and it's a shame we've lost him. But the music, my favourite Nirvana album is In Utero, and my favourite Pixie stuff, Surfer Rosa, etc., is Albini stuff. So I think he was great.
Yeah. Oh, In Utero is also my favourite Nirvana album, just to be... And my favourite Steve Albini produced album is an album by a band called Mono, and his anti-production, if I'm going to call it that, if I'm going to continue to call it, I can't change too much. The album is called Walking Cloud and Deep Red Sky, Flag Fluttered and the Sun Shined, and his production on that is fantastic. It's a post-rock album, and he gives it a lot of space to breathe, where their previous 2 albums have been quite claustrophobic, and it is the better for it. There are times when he's the perfect producer for things. I guess it's a bit like if you've got directors on a TV series, right? If you think about a band's series of albums as episodes of a TV series, there are times when you've got the right director for the right script. And I think that on that album, he was that. Yeah. And I think... and it's a shame that I'm sure were he still here, there would be a lot more of those to come, particularly with some of the artists that are up and coming. Like, imagine what an Idols record done with Steve Albini would sound like.
He was still working as well.
He did Liturgy last year, my album of the year.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, he was still making great records. It is a massive shame. Yeah. There's a couple of others as well. Dwayne Eddy was a recent one, pioneer of the kind of rockabilly sound. Everybody knows his version of the Peter Gunn theme, which is probably the most popular. Rebel Rouser as well, featured in Forrest Gump on that soundtrack, and that kind of whole twangy surf rocky rock and roll sound was pretty influential. There was also Richard Tandy from Electric Light Orchestra as well. He was the primary keyboardist in the Discovery era, the big late 70s ELO sound. A lot of that came from Richard Tandy. He's a big presence in that band. Sad to see him go as well. I did want to mention the passing of Shifty Shellshock from Crazy Town as well. Not a one-hit wonder, because Crazy Town, although they had one hit, Butterfly, Shifty Shellshock himself was featured as the vocalist on Port Oakenfold's Starry-Eyed Surprise. He had a second go on the charts there. He seemed to have struggled with substance abuse issues, so it's always sad to see somebody who's popular when you're in your teenage years to go down a really tragic route and end up ultimately passing before their time. We'll be back with more CAC news in the next few months. Keep you up to date. This one's just a short one to keep you abreast and make sure that you've got the true story of what happened in Glastonbury 2024. Until the next time, stay funky.